We're on.
Whoa! Does anybody else feel like they just gave birth to an alien?
Yes. No.
Okay, let's tip divided by 6. And everyone owes $28.
Everyone?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's Monica's big night. She shouldn't pay.
Oh, thank you.
So 5 of us is $33.50 apiece.
No way. Sorry, not gonna happen.
Whoa, prom night flashback.
Sorry, Monica. I'm really happy you got promoted, but cold cucumber mush for 30-something bucks? No. Rachel just had that little salad, and Joey with his, teeny pizza.
Okay, Pete. How about we'll each just pay for what we had, okay? It's no big deal.
Not for you. Alright, what's going on? Okay, look, you guys, I really don't want to get into this right now. I think it'll just make everybody uncomfortable.
Fine.
All right.
Hello.
Yeah, well, you can tell us.
Yeah, hello, it's us, all right? We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we three feel like that, sometimes you guys don't get that, we don't have as much money as you.
Okay.
I hear you.
We can talk about that.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Halloween to you. Halloween week to you. This is Agree or Disagree, the podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. You can Agree or Disagree, the podcast on Facebook as well. You can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. Spreaker.com is where you can find all the podcasts at KEVOLE. Find Agree or Disagree, the podcast. You can also find me on YouTube, also find me on Instagram at KVOLE, and follow me on iTunes, Agree or Disagree, the podcast. So that conversation that you heard is a conversation that probably has happened more than once, and it's about finances. It can be stressful for everyone. I want to go on that trip, but I can't afford it. I want to buy that thing, that car, that toy, that whatever, but I can't afford it. It may have even been something that you heard as a kid from your parents, if only we could afford that. And it may have been something that you've had to say to your kids, if only we could afford that. Our guests today want to make finances fun for your kids and your family, and our topic today is financial fun. Chuck Jaffe is the host of Money Life with Chuck Jaffe, a weekly radio show podcast. He has followed the rich journalistic history of comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable in the financial services world. For a decade, he wrote the Stupid Investment of the Week column for MarketWatch, highlighting the conditions and characteristics that made all types of securities less than ideal for average investors, uncovering in the process a rogues gallery of dreadful issues and bad ideas. He is also known for terrorizing the mutual fund industry with his annual Lump of Coal Awards, bestowed on titles in the mutual fund world for action, conduct, performance, or attitude that is, quote, bumbling, offensive, disingenuous, reprehensible, or just plain stupid. And he joins us today on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. How are you today? And where are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And where are you right now?
Just south of Boston.
South of Boston. Well, congratulations if you are a Red Sox fan.
We're all Red Sox fans when they're winning the World Series.
Yes, then that happens a lot. So that's like you're the land of champions over there. And from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, determined to be more than just another insurance salesman, Tammy Johnston founded the Financial Guides, She set about working with clients in a totally different fashion. Feeling that everyone needs a sound financial education, she created her first class, Financial Journeys. The goal was to provide the accurate, unbiased, basic information in simple English that we all require, but can't easily find. Knowing that the best way to learn is by having fun and being comfortable, Tammy takes good care of her guests with excellent food and lots of laughter. Further expanding her educational value-added offerings, Tammy created Sandwich Safaris, Business Builder Nights, and Small Business Class. And Tammy joins us from Calgary. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Great. It's great to have both of you on. And is the weather okay in Calgary? It's usually snowing at some point, or...
Well, it is Calgary, so wait 5 minutes. But right now we're actually having normal seasonal weather for a change, so it's quite nice.
Excellent. Excellent. So I wanted to start with kind of... I like the profiles because they're really good, but I also like to dig in a little bit to the profiles and wonder how you got to how you got here. So I thought I'd ask, what was your mindset about money as a kid? Like, what were you taught about it? What did you learn from it? What were some of the programs that you had around money? And
Are you starting with me?
Sure. You can go first.
Well, I really became interested in money. I've always told the story of how, back in the days, we had savings accounts in school, right? So you were able to go into school and you had a savings account, and it was with a local bank, but it was run through the school. And that became the first place where I started to see, well, you can set money aside and then have it for when you need it and what have you. And from there, it became like, I won't say I'm a spendthrift because I never have been. I'm happy to spend money on things that I want to spend money for. But I collected the change and, just sort of found myself gravitating towards saving. And by the time I was 13, I was already starting to invest. And my mom was actually the risk taker in the family. She's the one who taught me how to invest. But when I was 13, I was able to be buying money market funds that had double-digit returns, unlike what you'd be getting today. So I didn't really start doing stocks until a little bit later. But I've basically always been interested in it because I never felt like I had a lot of money. And I kept looking at it going, wait, I can do this and it'll make money grow. I can do that. It will make money grow. Okay, anything you can do to make money grow is going to make me happy.
Tammy, how did you start?
Well, how did I start? Well, my situation was very different. Like, we definitely didn't have savings accounts or anything through the school that I went to. I was raised in very rural northern Alberta, and money was always fascinating because money was a vehicle to get you the different things that you want. And growing up in the 70s, like I said, in very rural Alberta, money was always a tight thing, and you didn't talk about it. You didn't have those conversations around it. I think the only thing I ever got in terms of a financial lesson from my parents is don't go into debt. So I started learning curiously on my own a bit as a kid and more as a teenager, but it really happened when I moved into Calgary and started working for Investors Group that I really got my eyes open to the different possibilities.
Yeah, how does investing change your mindset about money? Either one of you could answer that. You guys both have this sort of a similar way of getting there, so either one of you can start and build off that.
Well, for me, investing to me was always explained as one of the things that you want to be able to do if you can is to have the benefit of owning a business. You can make money working for yourself or you can make money working for somebody else. And although my skill set didn't make it for like, hey, go off and be an entrepreneur, the idea of owning companies was always drilled home. So I wanted to be able to buy, because I watched really my mother more than my dad teach me about investment. My parents were married for over 60 years, but they managed their money separately, which I think is how they managed to stay married for over 60 years. and so to me, it was, can you participate in the process and at what level do you want? And And so I was always interested, and I was never discouraged by like, oh, you don't have a lot of money to invest. I didn't have a lot of money to invest, but every time I started investing, it kept growing, and I kept looking at it. So I think, I was fortunate in the timing, because I think there are people alive today who, they came of age at around 2000, and they watched the market go into the tank after the internet bubble, and just as it started to recover, we had the financial crisis of 2008, and things have recovered brilliantly since then. But they feel like they gambled and lost because their first investments were bad ones. Conversely, I also think that timing was right for me, and that I never felt the way somebody does when they go to the track and they get lucky early. Right? I grew up in a family where my grandfather would go down to visit in Miami, and we'd go to Hialeah, the racetrack. And my grandfather was like, hey, you got $2 of my money to bet on any given race. And I know he was worried. I had a time where my $2, I put it on some long shot. That long shot came in, and it was like, oh, there's $100. And my grandfather was worried that I'd go, oh, I can become a gambler. Look at how easy this is. So, I would say that fortunately that was never my history when it came to investing. It's never like, oh, I invested and I struck it rich. It was more like I've got big name companies that make sense to me to own, and things that people want to buy, and they're buying them. Ultimately, that's going to be okay for me.
It sounds like you look at money strategically.
Always have. Money is about, I don't look at money so much as a commodity. I look at money as giving me options and choices. And that's why I don't mind spending it, because I'm not going to look, like one of the things I talk about, I know people, including one of my uncles, who, for them, the entire thing is let's get to whatever the goal number is, whatever the target. And I know, for example, that my uncle had always said he wanted to be able to leave $1 million to his family. But when he got to the point where he had $1 million, he became the poorest man in the world. Why? Because if he spent anything, he wound up going below his target. He's never sure he'd get back. So the irony of it was, hey, you hit what your target was. You should be set. Everything's good. No, that's not how it worked for him. I don't want that kind of mindset. I certainly don't want to, become a burden to anybody. I'm not trying to do that. But at the same time, as long as I'm not a burden to someone, the rest of it's about choices.
Tammy, what are your thoughts?
I always thought of money as it's a seed that you plant, and where are you planting it? And one of the biggest things that I've always found is most people are extremely unconscious about their money, and they have no idea where it's going, whether they're just spending it or they're attempting to invest it or any of it. And that seems to be the biggest problem. As soon as people start becoming conscious of the money choices that they are making, it relieves a lot of the stress, and it opens them to the possibility of planting it as seeds.
That's an interesting way. When you're consciously aware of what your money can or cannot do for you, you're aware of what value it has.
Yes, very much so.
And what are both of your thoughts on? So why is it so stressful? Like how have we created finances to be so stressful? Has it always been this way? Is it because of our view of money as a culture, like we don't look at it in a really conscious way? We don't look at it as a commodity, or is it something else?
Money is a more taboo subject than sex.
Absolutely.
People do not talk about it. There is so much shame and fear around it. We are not properly educated about it in school, and people do not want to admit that they don't know everything. And it's something that's just kept hush hush. And then when people are starting to have difficulties with it, or they don't know the answer, they don't want to admit or let anybody know that they don't know everything, and it causes incredible amounts of stress.
Yeah, and then they also believe, well, I don't have a lot of money, so I don't need help necessarily. Like, I should be able to do this on my own. Yep. And then when they come to a point where they have amassed a bunch of money, they've done it sort of more by accident than by plan. Now they have to go plan, and sometimes they're at the whim of people who, aren't great advisors or simply are out for themselves and not out for their clients. And they're also then sort of coming late to the game. So whether it's you're playing catch up because you didn't know better, or you're playing catch up because you didn't understand how debt works. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting is that I know very few people who will tell you that at some point in their life they did not have a debt problem. Now, they might have been raised to think that debt is terrible, as you've already heard Tammy say today, and hopefully Tammy sort of never got into debt. But even folks I know who were raised with that have what they consider a debt problem. The difference is debt problems for each person are different. I know people who don't think they have a debt problem, and they have $25,000 or $40,000 or whatever in credit card debt, and that would not be. I couldn't live that way. I'd be going crazy. And I know others who feel that they have a huge debt problem because they can't pay off $2,500, or because they're carrying $2,500, don't feel they can pay it off. So the truth is that the vast majority of people wind up getting themselves into some level of debt problem. It may be a couple of hundred, it may be a couple of thousand, or it may be a real debt problem. But it's not a lesson that they're learning from their parents, and it's not one that they're taking from their parents, even when their parents try to tell them. Because money is so much about power that if somebody tries to tell you how you should spend it, or why you should spend it, or the way you should manage it, well, when you're a young kid, you're not paying attention. And then one more thing that happens, of course, is that kids these days see mom and dad get money by sticking their card into a machine. They never see what goes into putting the money in the machine in the first place.
Did you both get allowances as kids?
Oh, no.
No, okay.
No. If I wanted money, I had to work for it. I started with jobs when I was 10 years old, and it's not because my parents are mean. It wasn't available.
Right. So you taught, you have to, it's not going to grow on a tree in northern Alberta, or
nope.
You have to work for it. What about you, Chuck?
I had an allowance when I was a kid, and I also had jobs that I could do, and the two were not separate. Like, my allowance was not for chores. My chores were expected to be done. And then I didn't get paid for doing my chores. I got paid for doing a job that usually it was my father, sometimes it might be my mother, would otherwise be paying somebody else to do. So in other words, when I started cutting the grass, well, my dad had cut the grass, but then he was he was very busy. So he, for a while, got a service. Then he started having my big brother, who was much older than me, cut the grass. Then my brother went off to college, and he was back to the service. And then he basically came to me and said, "You want to cut the grass?" And I'm like, "You want to pay me?" And he's like, "Sure, I'll pay you." I don't think he was actually paying you what he would have paid the service, but he paid something close to it. And so that was how it worked. And in my case, my kids always had an allowance. Their allowance also had to be separated, because they had basically three different levels of what they could do. They had money that they could spend. They had money that was basically set aside for charity. And then they had long-term savings. And whatever they put into long-term savings, I matched. And the result is I have two very, very money-savvy millennials. And they take very good care of their money. And their money was never for, their allowance was never for, this is what happened. It was, if we went to the grocery store and they said, "Oh, I want to buy one of those things at the end," your money, your decision. It's always their money, their decision. So if they said, "Oh, I really want to buy something that was not in our budget or on our grocery list," they could do it with their money. But the most common response was, "Well, no, if it's my money, I'd rather keep it for something different." Good. Then you learn money makes choices.
It's interesting. Yeah. Do you think as a culture, I probably know what your answer is going to be, but I think it's something that's worth it unpack, because I do think in the midst of the taboo subject that money is, I think the word debt is also becoming a bit of a taboo subject. Is it something that our culture is encouraging? And in some way, well, I think yes. I think the answer in some ways is quite obvious. Yes, with the buy now, pay later kind of things. But like, what are your thoughts around sort of bringing a balance to debt? Because I guess there's the other side of that is like you mentioned, Chuck, you know someone that has a $2,500 debt and is stressed about that. And then others that have just a complete, with a quite larger debt, have a complete, like, almost a shrug of shoulder around that. So what do you think about our culture's perception of debt?
Well, I mean, look, you have financial experts like a Dave Ramsey or like a Susie Orman who tell you debt is never a good thing. I would disagree with that. I don't love debt. It's that I believe debt is a tool. And so that's what I've tried to teach my children, et cetera. You know, my kids both wanted to be able to get frequent flyer mile credit cards because they like traveling and what have you. And then, you know, one of them was like, well, I've got this much on it. I'll pay it off this month and next month. And I'm like, you do realize what a bad deal this is if you're not paying it off all the time. Like, if you don't pay it off all at once, this is a bad deal. And I said, you should, if you think you're going to be spending enough money that you would carry a balance, go get yourself a card that does well by that, and you can make your decisions. And so to me, debt is a tool. I mean, I'll point out that there was a period where, for reasons that I don't need to get into here, I was carrying more debt than I would have liked to. But the debt was all so cheap. It was 4%. And the market was paying 14 or 15 in terms of what I was able to generate in returns. That why would I have gone out of my way to wind up paying it off? I paid it off on time, and I never had a trouble, and I was completely solvent. In other words, I knew that at any time I wanted, I could zero that debt and not have it be a hardship. But in the meantime, we had something come up. It made sense to borrow the money. It made sense to pay it off over time because you were giving me money at a low rate, and the money that I had, not in the bank, but in my investment accounts, was earning at a much higher. So to me, debt's a tool. When you need it, you use it. When you don't need it, get rid of it. Not help.
Kenny, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Chuck on that. Debt is very much a tool. It's not good or bad. It's how it's used and for what. So, for example, I was very young when I got my first mortgage because my husband and I were getting married, and it was cheaper for us to buy our condo than it was for us paying rent and all the other costs that went away around with it. And then we were also building up equity. But a mortgage is a big debt. But if it's done properly, like that has been huge for helping us build up our net worth over the years. And then we owned our place, and it worked for us because we have been very, very stable. Where for some people, getting a mortgage is not a good idea because they can't handle it. They're not sure where they're going to be, and it ties them down unnecessarily. So, and then if you want to talk about credit cards, they're a great way of building up your credit if you are able to pay it off every month. If you can't pay it off, you're donating an awful lot of your hard-earned money to a credit card company unnecessarily. So it's all in how and why you're using it.
Yeah, let's dig into the credit card aspect of that as well, because that's a big trap for a lot of people. It has caused some personal harm for many. I've experienced that a little bit as well. What are some focuses on keeping the credit card discipline, and really to dig into the next part that I'm going to get into anyway about finances anyway. How do you keep it fun? How do you keep it like that it's not this heavy burden on the top of your head and your shoulders and your neck that you're walking around with every day?
I would say that the biggest thing is just being aware of your money. One of the biggest problems that I find more with young people now, because they don't deal with cash. Everything's plastic. It's either the credit card or the debit card. So they don't have the emotional connection that whenever they're using their plastic, that is money that they're seeing, and it's going away. Where when people are using cash, like credit cards and debit cards didn't exist when I was a kid. They came in when I was a young adult. But when you have money in your wallet and you have to actually physically hand over a 20 or a 10, you see it and you see the money going out of your wallet. You don't have the same connection when it's the plastic. And then you get bill at the end of the month. You're going, oh my God, how could I have possibly spent this much money? And I don't have all that to pay off. Where if you're aware of the money that you're spending, and the big thing that I find is not wasting it on impulse purchases, which are absolutely everywhere. That's our society spends so much time and money marketing to get you to part with money without thinking about it. Oh, it's only $5 to go to Starbucks. It's not a big deal. Well, how many times are you doing that throughout the month? That adds up very, very quickly.
I think that, ultimately, I always say I'm never sure whether financial apps are good for people or bad for people. I think some of that depends on a person's mindset. Like I said, the person who doesn't have a serious amount of debt but feels like they're under constant pressure, that's something that they bring to themselves, and I think they have to worry about that from a health standpoint, not from a monetary standpoint. And then there's the other person who keeps just blowing that stuff up, and what are you going to do about them? I mean, they keep spending, and they're not really giving you the opportunity to, themselves the opportunity to do the right thing. And as long as they have access to more credit, they keep taking it. So, unfortunately, there are plenty of people who are that way. I mean, I do think that when people feel flush, they want to do it. And I also will tell you, I know plenty of people who are in the financial business, who are responsible and everything else. And they say that, spending and some of those other decisions are frequently about things other than spending. It's somebody buying a new outfit because they want to show power. Somebody buying a new power tool because they want to show power, not about, oh, I really need this. And I wish people could get over that. One of the things that my kids learned early, because it was their money, we always have the story that we tell about, we went to some restaurant, and it was a restaurant where, it's a steakhouse where up on the wall they have the moose talking to you, and, have all this stuff with the mounted fish are flapping or whatever. And they had a talking tree at the lobby. And they also had a little gift shop where you could buy a puppet of the talking tree. So my kids, they not only had allowance, they had what's called an allowance account, where some of that money put aside, and they asked me, and I had a ledger that was kept in my car. So my daughters wanted to buy timber for the talking tree. Now at the time, they were maybe 6 and 4. And my kids hate this story, by the way. They've heard it a million times. I suggested maybe they go in on this together. But no, my oldest wanted Timber the Talking Tree herself, and the youngest therefore wanted to follow suit, and they both had money. So each one of them bought Timber the Talking Tree. And about 3 weeks later, Timber the Talking Tree was never played with again. I didn't let them get rid of Timber for many, many years. Because I sort of said, hey, remember how much you wanted Timber the Talking Tree? And remember you got like a month away from that? And he said, I want to spend some money on this. And you didn't have the money. That's what Timber. And so, unfortunately, I think most people don't have or don't recognize as they're going through it, they have their own version of Timber the Talking Tree.
It's interesting. Yeah, kind of our little our walls. So how have you guys made? You guys both, I think, both of you in different ways have made finances fun. I know watching Tammy and her Facebook status is she always puts up some really great questions about having some fun with the finances, and just it's very little simple questions about finances. How do we make it fun? What are your thoughts on that? How have you made it fun?
Well, I start by not making it so serious. I mean, I end my show at the end of every show, we say, hey, we hope you'll remember that until we do this again the next time, the best thing you can do for your money is to not worry too much about it. We say that on my show, my podcast, every single day. because that's indeed what we want you to remember, that you never do better financially by worrying excessively. And we don't want that for anyone. And then, I mean, as for making it fun, I basically believe that you should try to figure out what the process is. And for some people, it's never going to be fun. They don't have an interest. And it doesn't need to be fun. It just needs to be efficient. So as much as I love having fun with it, I think that ultimately it's about making it first useful and then deciding who enjoys it and why they enjoy it and what they can do with it. But among the fun things, I mean, hey, we're at Halloween week, and kids who come to my door get a choice, basically, of cash or candy. It's trade or treat at my house.
Oh.
And it takes a little bit of work to do what I like to do, and how I've changed it the last couple of years. But we're trying to teach lessons about money and choices.
And how have the kids responded to that?
They love it. In the last couple of weeks, because I haven't put up a pumpkin, I've been busy. So I have the last few years, I've had a pumpkin that's called the money pumpkin. It's a pumpkin with a dollar sign on it. And the kids have been asking the last couple of days, is the money pumpkin coming? And I haven't gotten it done yet. It will go up on Tuesday, so a day before Halloween. And we haven't gotten a massively bigger crowd, but everybody comes and is very interested. And it applies to kids who are in the third grade and up. And the vast majority of them take money over candy, however it's being offered, which is what I would expect. But this year is a little more of a potential for them to feel a little lost. So I'll see how that one goes. Because we want them to understand that, when you make choices, it's every single person going, look at how big the lottery jackpot has become, without recognizing that the jackpot got that big on the backs of all the losers.
Yeah.
Right?
Lottery is just a tax on people who are bad at math.
Oh, absolutely. The lottery is distinctly not something that we're in favor of, but at the same time, it is something that a lot of people are interested in without sort of recognizing. I mean, look, the gambler's fallacy, so many things that happen, not just in investing, in life, right? If I flipped the coin and it came up 10 times in a row heads, you could find in a room full of people, half of them would say, hey, it's going to come up heads because heads on a hot streak. And half of them would say it can't come up heads because you can't do that, so many times in a row. Each throw is a 50-50 chance. Or the number of people who will compare things to a roulette wheel. And they'll say, well, it's like red or black. You got a 50-50 chance. You don't have a 50-50 chance on a roulette wheel. A roulette wheel has green space. That's called house edge. So if you bet black, somebody else bets red, what happens when it comes up with green? You both lose. It's not a 50-50 chance, but the gambler's fallacy suggests it is. So you try to be able to teach things and hope they're going to learn them, and you try to do it in a fun way. Do the kids always make ideal choices? Well, I don't know. I'll have to see what they do this year when the ideal choice is to not go after the biggest potential jackpot. And I think that most of them will still go after the biggest jackpot, in part because I'm the only one doing this in my neighborhood. I think if they had a lot of people doing it, that might change things. But
how much do you give for the money if they choose the money, Chuck?
Well, so when I started, the very first year I did this, it was simply cash or candy. So if you come to my house, you get 3 pieces of fun-size candy, value 37.5 cents, 12.5 cents roughly per piece of, fun-size candy. So the first year it was simply you can trade that in for an envelope that has between a quarter and $5. The next year we changed it to trade possibilities. So again, 3 pieces of candy, or you could take money from a small money envelope. The small money envelope had between a quarter and $3 in it. Or you could trade 1 piece of candy, picked randomly from your bag. Had to be fun size, but you didn't get to go, oh man, my neighbors gave me something I really don't like. I'll give that to him. Nope. I had to pick it. So you had to have the potential to lose it. But you were going to lose 1 piece of fun size candy in exchange for the chance to pick an envelope that had a minimum of 50 cents and a maximum of $5. So for those who aren't doing the math, let me cut to the chase. Your investment in coming to my house and getting dressed up was 37.5 cents. If you didn't give me candy, which I would expect would be the common response, you had the potential to lose. You'd wind up coming up with 25 cents at the bottom and $3 as the top. But if you gave a piece of candy, well, now you're 12.5 cents added to the 37.5. That's a 50-cent investment in coming to my house, but you were guaranteed to make 50 cents and up to $5. That brings us to this year. So on Wednesday, Halloween this year, your choices are 3 pieces of candy, or you give me 1 piece of candy and you pick from envelopes that have 50 cents to $5. And oh, by the way, half of the envelopes have them in them. Or give me 3 pieces of candy. And then you get to pick from envelopes where if you win money, they have between $1 and $10. But half of the envelopes have nothing. So the right choice is going to be give me 1 piece of candy. Yes, your jackpot is muted, but your loss, there is. And yet I expect most kids to go for the bigger jackpot. And some of that is because of the way behavioral finance. And some of that is because they know that almost everyone goes for it because they recognize they take all their candy home. Mom and dad are going to take some, etc. Mom and dad are not dipping into their money. It's a good feel. Like the first year that we did this, 52 out of 56 kids who were eligible took the money. Last year, it was 64 out of 68. Now, I will say that last year, my favorite moment of the whole thing was I had 7 girls who came up, and the first 6 girls all were like, oh, take candy, go ahead. You want the chance to play for the big money. So I pulled out, let's say it was a Snickers bar, I don't really remember what it was, but out of several of those girls, I pulled out a Snickers bar and put it on the top of my candy. And then I went to the last person, and she said, no, I'll take candy. And she reaches into the candy basket, and she takes 3 Snickers bars. And I said, why did you take candy? She goes, Snickers bars are my favorite. So I knew, as you had pulled out of the others, that I get only my favorite candy. And my parents don't Snickers because they know my favorite. They only take things that I don't like them. So she actually made the smartest choice of all. She got exactly what she wanted for her investment. So it all depends on how you set it up. Do I believe the kids are learning great money lessons? No, I don't know. But I don't let them open their envelopes on my property. They have to, they take them home. And I hope that when they open them and they have their reaction, they will talk to their parents. And the couple of parents who have talked to me about it, that's what happened. But, yeah, never can tell. So, I mean, what I can tell you is the jackpots have always been picked, and yet nobody's come to me and said, hey, my kid won the jackpot. But I have had neighbors say, oh, my kid got this amount when they came to your house. And that's so cool. That's what you're doing. And then, we talked about what were the choices. Why did you pick what you picked? Good. If mom and dad can have a choice about why did you pick what you picked, then I consider it to be a
It's fascinating because, yeah, it's planting. And what I really like about what you're doing, and Tammy, you can chip in on this as well with your thoughts, but it feels like you're creating a way of a conversation that is not, it's not good or bad. I mean, in investing, I cannot claim to be any expert in investing at all. It's something I would like to learn within the next year here or so. But there are times I think that I would assume that there's the high element of risk that is worth it, and sometimes playing it safe isn't. But in other times, that's not. So it's creating a mindset about the strategy around making your choice. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, kids could make their pick for a million reasons. Like I said, it could be I know that mom and dad would take candy if I took candy. Like they might pick out candy from me, or Maybe they look at my candy dish when they see the next kid and they go, oh, there's nothing in there that I like, or whatever. I mean, there's also a motivation for kids if they think about it, and I don't think they get this deep in it, to keep picking candy. I mean, it's sort of a bit, the story of the two brothers who the older brother gives his younger brother a choice between a nickel and a dime. Have you ever heard this story?
The younger brother goes with the nickel because it's bigger.
That's correct. And the younger brother goes for the nickel because it's bigger. You know the rest of the story? You want to tell it, Dan?
No, I don't remember the rest of the story.
Well, the rest of the story. So the younger brother takes the nickel because it's bigger. And the older brother goes, look at how stupid my younger brother is. Right? He's so dumb. So he does it again to show some other friends. And every time he does this, the younger brother takes the nickel. And then the older brother makes fun of him. So this happens like 5 or 6 times. Finally, their mother sees the boys do this. She sees her older son put out nickel and a dime because the younger brother pulled a nickel again. And she sees the older brother make fun of him. So she goes up to the younger brother. She goes, Johnny, I don't get it. You know that a dime is worth more than a nickel. And he looks at her and goes, of course I do, Mom. But the minute I pick the dime, he stops playing with me. So, I do think there's some of this where if they felt that they didn't take the money, maybe I would not be doing it next year. But that's not it. And by the way, I will tell you that a lot goes into making these thinking envelopes because the kids would like to be able to figure out how to game the envelopes. And I won't allow that to happen. Like they'd like to be able to figure out, oh, this feels like it's a lot of money. I use $1 coins. I use 50-cent pieces. I use $2 bills. I do absolutely everything to make the envelopes as identical as possible.
Right.
And you put a lot of time into that.
Well, because if you don't, you're going to wind up having its own set of issues. And I won't tell you that it's not somewhat more expensive. I spend more on Halloween than some people, but I don't have a lot of decorations in my yard. I could spend it on that if I wanted to. And the truth is, after last year, when people were trading me candy, I bought very little candy this year, which is really good for me because, nobody's ever seen me and thought, oh, he could use to eat a lot more candy. So, if paying a little bit more, having this fun thing, and being left with less candy, that's all good. That's okay.
It's fascinating.
But I do go through, like, this year I wound up calling my bank like a week and a half ago. It's very funny. I called my bank, and they're like, ooh, getting $50 can be really tricky. And I said, well, we have a week and a half. They said, we're not sure we can get you the $50 you need in a week and a half. And I said, well, here's an interesting money thing. They said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I called you in the summer. I was going to be traveling to Israel, and I needed to get some new shekels. And you said never even heard of new shekels. And yet you had them for me the next day. And now I'm asking you for, 50-cent pieces, good old USA, regular tender. And you're going, I don't know how I get those in a couple of weeks. So dollar coins they have plenty of. $2 bills they have enough of for me this year already. I'm hoping they can get my 50-cent piece.
I want to send you a couple of tunings because I think that would be just a fascinating reaction to the kids. What is this? What is this?
Well, considering how bad our exchange rate is, the poor kid would feel ripped off, Kevin.
Yeah, it's true. But also another valuable lesson.
Well, look, everything's. I tell a story. This literally happened to me this past week, and I just this past weekend gave a speech to an American Association of Individual Investors, AAII chapter in Philadelphia. And when I was done, someone gave me a genuine fake Bitcoin. Because there's no such thing as a genuine real Bitcoin, right? When you see a picture of something that is round and it's a coin and it has the B on it, Bitcoin doesn't exist in the real world. So
it's all cyber currency.
My genuine fake Bitcoin is as real as the genuinely fake and completely worthless Bitcoins you see in any picture. And so they gave this to me. So I basically was like, oh, well, there you go. There's my pay for going down to speak to this group. And I got home and I had to stop at the grocery store, and one of my friends who's in the financial services industry was in the store. And we were talking about it. I said, I gave the speech down in Philadelphia. He asked what it was about, et cetera. He said, so did you get paid for that? I said, well, they covered my expenses, et cetera. But all I got paid in was this Bitcoin. And I pulled it out of my pocket because I had it. And he looked at it and he goes, that's so cool. I'll give you $20 for it. I was like, okay, there you go. Fake Bitcoin is every bit as real Bitcoin. Somebody wanted to pay me $20 for it. True story.
Wow.
I kept it, but because I figured having fake Bitcoin in my pocket or when I go to give a speech or something would be good.
Yeah. Tammy, what about you? That's great. What about you? How do you make it fun?
Well, how do I make it fun?
Yeah.
The first question I always ask them is like finding out what motivates them. What do they want? And I work with a lot of teenagers. I have one myself. And when they're figuring out something that they want to be saving for a trip or they want to be saving to go to school or for their first vehicle or anything, that gets them motivated. So getting them to, okay, how much money have you spent over the last year on stuff that you've like timber the talking tree or whatever that you really, really wanted for a short little while, but then now it's sitting in your closet collecting dust. And one of the things I teach all of my clients, whether or not they be kids or adults, before they spend money on anything, do I really want this? So if they're making the decision, you know what, no, I really do want this. This is something that I've been saving for and all that, then buy it, enjoy it. If it's just something, okay, you got impulsed on it, no, would you rather have your trip to Hawaii or not having to worry about student debt or saving for your first car? And that makes it a lot more fun for them because they're seeing it as accomplishing a goal and having the different accounts. Or my daughter gets paid an allowance, but I pay her in cash, and she has her 6 jars. And one of the things that she's gotten excited about ever since she was a little girl is going through when she gets paid her allowance and counting out how much money she has in each of her jars. And she thinks that's fun.
Yeah, that's all. Oh, I remember the piggy bank when I was a kid, and when you got the time where you broke the jar and how much was in there. It was always fun. Yeah. I don't have any kids now, so I don't know if the piggy bank is still something, but like that whole concept around that is, it's fun. You see what you've spent and what you've taken away, and even because it's coins, it seems like it's so little, but yet it grew so much, right?
It adds up. It adds up quickly. My daughter, because she's 15, almost 16 now, she gets paid in definitely much larger bills than that. And no, it's not tied to her chores. She gets to do those because she's part of the household, and I don't get paid to do the dishes, so neither does she.
Right.
But she likes being able to, like, we've started the Christmas shopping because we had to send a bunch of stuff out to Vernon here, and she likes being able to go and make her own decisions on what she's going to be buying people for their presents and things like that, and paying for it with her own money. Like, her first big purchase that she did is she saved up for a fair while to purchase her first Nintendo 3DS. And she was only like 9 at the time when she got it. And she picked it out, and she wanted the pink one, but the turquoise one was $30 cheaper. So she decided that the pink wasn't quite as important. Having the $30 left over afterwards was a much better choice. So, but she felt very, very mature and very responsible paying for it. And we've never had a problem with her being responsible with her money, because she sees that when she gets the things that she actually truly values. And she still plays with her Nintendo 3DS. She's had it for over 6 years, and she still plays with it. So, very useful investment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get them to where they're thinking about, my kids had stock portfolios from the time that they had social security numbers. They got involved in those things at a very early age. They both have what they know to be kind of like, oh, here's my hero story where I made a lot of money, even though they weren't really doing anything to it. And here's my horror story where I lost a lot of money. even though they weren't really doing anything to it, but they had picked, it was about their portfolio being names that they understood.
Mm-hmm.
And kids can understand ownership at very early ages. And then when my kids got to be 21 and those accounts were in their names, and like their friends were like, your parents did what? Like, and you have how much money? Because each of them had, we didn't put away a lot. It was more when they were babies, and then it was, a couple $100 and reinvest your dividends. But they both graduated college with, they were basically hit 21 and had over $21,000 in there. So they've done very well, and they still have that money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's theirs. And they know that it gives them choices. And, I tell people all the time when somebody says, oh, I don't believe in giving an allowance. I said, so when your kid comes to you and says, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to go to the movies, you believe in then giving them cash? And half of them do. Yeah, I'll give them a little bit of money to go out and get out of my hair. I'm like, nope. My kids got an allowance because that paid for things that I might have otherwise paid for. But they could decide what those things were. If they wanted to go to movies instead of going downtown to, buy some candy or sit at the local ice cream shop with their friends, that was up to them.
And they don't just view you as the bank of dad.
The Bank of Dad is open very limited hours, and it has a very accurate accounting of how much money you have on account.
Yeah.
So, let's get in, because I think you're getting into another part of this, is what are some of the mindsets that we have, as a culture, have taught kids about money? And I mean, there's a part of this that is like, well, it's different for each generation, but I think there's some common things in some ways about it. I mean, we talked earlier about not having the bank card and using cash as one of them, but what other things have we taught positively or negative about money? And then I'm going to want to get into this time of year and money, because I think it's a very important conversation.
I would say that as a society, what we've been teaching kids for easily the last 20 years is extremely materialistic, and it's all about your status is determined by the material goods you can show off. And I think it's extremely harmful. Like, kids are not taught to save or anything like our grandparents were. It's always like everything's advertised on the TV, buy now, pay later, horrible shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and stuff like that. That is poison as far as I'm concerned.
What Tammy said. There you go. That was a great answer.
Just the way, and I was thinking about this too, because this is also the time, there's a lot of people, especially younger people, we're young, but younger people are going out and spending a whole hell of a lot on a costume that they're going to use for one day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great for that one day, but it just feels like it costs so much. And then I always admire those that don't spend the money, but can create a really fantastic costume out of nothing and spend no money. Right. But it's that imaging, buy from this store because you will look cooler. And
the importance of labels, and you see young girls, they have to have this $500 purse. Why? Yeah. Oh my God, what a complete waste of money. And if you don't have the means to be doing that, their self-esteem is affected, and they're putting so much time and effort into things that have absolutely no value, and they're missing out on building relationships and learning about money and having freedom, rather than always having to be shopping to keep up on the trends and just going through money like it's water and going into debt, and then dealing with all of that financial stress that comes from it. It is extremely unhealthy, and it's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's got to be ways to do this where, people can get their self-esteem from a lot of other things, but plenty of people can't. I mean, and mind you, even plenty of the times where people think they're doing things the right way, they have their own side effects. I mean, anybody who's ever watched, extreme couponing, sees people who are, hey, you're buying a whole bunch of things that admittedly you're getting for free, but you have to build a stockpile. Like, you'd have to brush your teeth actively hours every day to use the amount of toothpaste you have, but you're taking it because it's free. And you find out often that these folks, well, they had a spending addiction. They got over it. Now they have it. They just have it with coupons.
Yeah, they've just changed their addiction.
If you can do it and turn it to something good, like you can say, hey, I bought a gazillion things of toothpaste and I donate them to, the military, to charity, to hurricane relief. That's one thing. But when you're doing it to have your stockpile in your basement,
in their garage, in their shed,
I don't see the benefit of that. And again, I think people need to understand what money can and can't do for them, and then go from there. And it's funny because if we talked briefly and touched on the lottery, I've never purchased a lottery ticket, and I doubt I ever will. I do believe that my chance of finding the winning lottery ticket is almost as good as my chance of buying it. So I might be willing to pick one up if somebody dropped one. But, when you see people, like, if I do believe there's something the lottery is very good for. I think there's a benefit to playing what if with your money. If we told you, okay, well, what if you won the massive amount? Okay, well, then I do all of these things. Okay, you didn't hit every number. You only hit enough to maybe get $1 million. What would you do then? Okay, you only got 500,000. You only got 100,000. You only got 10,000. And you can basically start to see how priorities shape up. What would you do if we suddenly said, no, you're not winning $1 million, you're winning $500,000. You're not winning $500,000, you're winning 100. And let's point out that without a lottery, plenty of people will wind up with some sort of a windfall, a good stretch of overtime. Your company comes to you and says, hey, I want you to retire. Here's your retirement bonus, but you had your next job lined up and you were ready to go anyway, so you get a little windfall. Whatever it might be, plenty of people have some measure of windfall. You get an inheritance of somehow, but you want to be able to prioritize. But here's the thing. If you buy one lottery ticket, you can play what if. In fact, as I proved, you don't need a lottery ticket to play. But if you buy 2 lottery tickets, you don't get to go, wow, I play what if so much better now. And I got more value or even the same value out of the second ticket. So if somebody says, I buy 10 lottery tickets a week, do you get 10 times the enjoyment out of having that many tickets? Or did you just spend 10 times the money? And could you got the same amount of enjoyment, the same buzz? I'm in it, so I have a chance to win with one. And I wish people would think about spending that way so much more. But they don't. So the good news is they'll keep you employed forever.
Yeah, interesting. It's very interesting. I don't play the lottery myself, but I let others do that. I don't do the gambling thing myself. But this time of year, from now until the 24th of December, is one of the busiest times of spending in our culture. There's spending on Halloween, Christmas, all other holidays, birthdays, all of this. And it leads many people into some pretty deep consumer credit card debt, and January becomes a broke time. And the shopping industry is well aware of this because they plant their sales at a certain time strategically. So our culture is aware of this, or is subconsciously aware of our spending habits. How do these type of years, like, what are your thoughts around advising around the spending strategy here? Like, what are the things you advise the people that you work with, especially with their people that is more that their love language is giving. So, and they value giving more because that's the way that they express their love. How do we have a healthier view on that?
Well, one of the things that I do with my clients is I set them all up with a budget, and we always talk about Christmas or Ramadan or whatever the holiday is that you do the giving, and who's on your list and what do you want to spend, and start saving for it, like putting it aside in a separate account throughout the year, and then you have that to do that. And I also bring up, like, one of the challenges I have with my mother and my in-laws is they don't need anything. Their houses are full of crap that they're now trying to get rid of. So, but they want time, and they want the attention. So for their Christmas gifts and stuff, we'll write them a card and going, okay, we're going to go and we're going to do this thing as a family activity, or we're going to have you over for dinner or something like that, or make something for them. And that works an awful lot better, because how many people have bought gifts that's just glorified garbage, or received it because somebody felt obligated? What a total and complete waste. And like you said, a lot of people just start November, they start going into credit card debt, and then they end up with a massive credit card bill in January, and that's not good for anybody. So being aware, having the budget for it, and making choices. Like, are you giving something because this is something that somebody's actually going to really enjoy and like, or are you giving it out of obligation? And then they just have to figure out what they're going to deal with this whoopee wowzer that they don't give a rat's ass about.
Whoopee wowzer.
Well, I have for the last several years basically written a column urging people to swear off gift cards. And it's not that I don't love a good gift card, or that I don't think people shouldn't buy gift cards. It's that I think a lot of gift cards is mindless giving. It's kind of when you care enough to do the very least, right? It's, well, I can't figure out what I should get them, and I don't know what it is, but whatever. Now, if you said, oh, my kid lives in this place, and their favorite restaurant is that local whatever, and I stopped by and I got a gift certificate for them to be able to go out to a restaurant to their favorite place, cool, no problem.
Yep.
But if you're going, well, let's see, it's Christmas Eve and I'm checking out of the Walmart with the last sort of things. Oh, wait, here's Subway and Starbucks gift cards. I'll throw some money onto those. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. That's for you to feel better that you've thrown some more money in. And again, it's not there for something that you're doing. So as much as I appreciate the utility of gift cards, I just think for the most part they wind up being mindless giving. And I think when you start to discourage mindless giving and you start to think about mindful giving, you get to a lot of the things Cam was talking about. You get, my kids will say, well, what should we get you? How about you don't get anything? How about the next time you're home, you buy dinner, we all go out, or whatever it is. You treat me to the movies, because I would like nothing better than for you guys to be here and let's go.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're going to do something where it's the gift card or the gift certificate or whatever, do something that not, I think they appreciate it, or I won't get the size wrong if I buy this. Do it the other way. I used to get, when I would go visit my parents when they lived in the town where I would grow up, where I grew up, I would go to the local car wash, the one that my dad and I used to go to together, right? So we'd be doing our errands when I was a little kid growing up, and I'd go there. They didn't sell them online. I couldn't buy them anyplace else, and I'd buy him, a year's worth of car washes. Now, the truth was that he wasn't going to get his car washed all that much, but every time I got home, he said, why don't we go run some errands, and we'll go buy the car wash. Totally, right? So you can do it. And again, I'm not saying, oh, they're horrible things. I just believe for most people, they might be like, oh, let's spend a little bit more. Show them to spend money. And I think that for most people, even when you think about like the work situation, right? Oh, I've got to do something for the people I work with, so I'll buy them all gift cards. I think the people at work might more appreciate, so I'll throw a little celebration. Everybody, I'll buy pizza in spring or whatever, and we'll do something here. We'll have casual Fridays where lunch is brought. That would be more appreciated and will get you more than I give you something, you go away and use it, etc.
One of the things I was thinking about it, and even with the work situation, that I think that it's fun, I guess, too. But like, there's also, I find that I give and I get things that they're okay. They're not terrible, but it's like I'm not gonna have them forever. And there's a few of them that I don't have anymore because I live a fairly minimalistic life. But I mean, something more valuable that I think instead of Secret Santa is like a secret compliment, like just be able, because we don't do enough of that. Like something that, hey, compliment your colleague on the work that they've done, because I find that sometimes that can be such a toxic place. But I don't know. It's a time that there's a lot of pressure to give financially when there's other ways to, and you guys talked about that, there's other ways to do that can be meaningful, valuable, and speak to the person in a powerful manner.
Very much so.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to touch on, or we've covered a lot today?
I think we've covered a lot in an hour.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll start with Tammy. Tammy, kind of tell us where we can find you and what you're up to, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the easiest way to find me is through my website, thefinancialguides.com. And what am I up to? Well, I have my podcast where we talk to parents and grandparents about money, kids, and business. And I have my children's financial books so that we can start teaching kids how to ask the right questions, because money is an exciting game, but the rules are constantly changing in different things, but how to get involved in the game, and just having a lot of fun doing that.
Fine. You're on Twitter as well?
Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. I think I even have Instagram, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, we can find. Yes, all right. We'll put all that there. Chuck, how do we find you? What are you up to?
Well, the show, it's Money Life with Chuck Jaffe, and it can be found on your favorite podcast platform. We do an hour of daily market talk, market and all things financial talk. So we talked emergency funds. By the way, we have an interview coming on Halloween, and you made a mention of the Halloween costumes and people spending it. There's a study that was just done by the folks at Wallet Hub where like 23% of people said they'd be willing to go into debt to get a good Halloween costume. Just pointing that out.
Wow.
So we talk about stuff like that on my show, but we also talk markets and economy and everything from soup to nuts. It's 1 hour of financial talk every day. You can find it at your favorite podcast platform or at our website, which is moneylifeshow.com. We're on Twitter at Money Life Show. We're on Facebook at Money Life Show. And we are on Instagram, or I am on Instagram at Chuck Jaffe. I'm also on Twitter at Chuck Jaffe. So if you know the name and you know Money Life Show, somewhere you should be able to find us.
Wow. All right. Of course, again, you can find me on Facebook, Kevin Olenek, Twitter, KVOLE, Like, Agree, or Disagree the Podcast on Facebook. Instagram, KVOLE. We are going through some rebranding on Instagram and YouTube, but you can subscribe and follow there. Subscribe on iTunes. Soon we'll be on Spotify, Agree or Disagree the Podcast. Spreaker.com, KEVOLE is where you can find all the podcasts. I really enjoyed this conversation. I thought it was really valuable. I thought glad that we broke through some taboos. And I really thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy day to come in on the show today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, and coming up, of course, we've just done a review of Daredevil Season 3 with Mitch Milani from the Bottom Line View, and I recapped that. We've got a conversation around social media, and we will also be talking about a cannabis event coming up soon as well. So stay tuned for that. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.
Come on, lottery!
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, it starts in like 20 minutes. Okay, all right, here we go. So we need to sort through the tickets as quickly as possible to see if we've won. So does anybody have any ideas how to organize this? Okay, how about this? We divide them into 6 groups of 40, and the remaining 10 can be read by whoever finishes their pile first.
Oh, I have another idea.
I'm sorry, idea time is over.
Okay, well, are all the tickets in the bowl?
Yeah.
What about the ones you have on the nightstand?
There are no tickets on the nightstand.
Yes, sir. I just saw them a few minutes ago.
No, you didn't. You must be mistaken.
Honey, there are like 20 tickets on the nightstand.
Chandler, sense the tone.
Well, look what Mommy found.
Okay, fine. I bought 20 extra tickets for me and Chandler.
The psychic also said that I would be betrayed.
I can't believe this. I thought we were all in this together.
Hey, you just got in 5 minutes ago.
3 minutes ago. I don't know why that's important.
Hey, look, I was with you the whole time we were in Connecticut. When did you even get those?
When you were reading the dirty magazines without taking off the plastic.
I'll show you.
Okay, well, Monica, suppose one of your special tickets wins. How are you going to feel when you win the lottery and you lose all your friends? Please, if I win the lottery, you guys are not going to leave me. Someone gave me a basket of mini muffins last week, and I couldn't get rid of you for 3 days.
Chandler, would you just tell her what she did was wrong?
She's right. You shouldn't have bought tickets just for us. Let me finish. However, it doesn't look like I'm going to get this job, so I can't afford to have principals. So screw you, the tickets are ours.
There's the man I married.
All right, believe me, if you win the lottery, it's the last you're going to hear from us.
Yeah.
Fine. Don't be my friends. I'll buy new friends. Yeah, and then I'll pay for their plastic surgery so they look just like you.
All right, you know what? That's it. I want my share of the tickets.
Yeah, I want my tickets too. And I'm buying the Knicks. And Steffi Graf.
Then I want mine too, and if I win, I'm going to put it all into a very low-yield bond.
You guys, we got to keep all the tickets together.
No, we should divide them up, and I should get extra because we used my car to buy them.
Hey! If anybody gets extra tickets, it should be me. This whole thing was my idea.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for inventing the lottery.
Okay. That's it. Just give them to me, and I'll split them up. Ow!
Hey!
I can't take it anymore. I'm putting an end to this. Okay, if she jumps, I get her tickets.
Wait, no.
We're not doing this together. We're not doing it at all. Say goodbye to your tickets.
No.
Do not come any closer.
Can I come a little bit closer? Valuable things are getting squished.
Now, what's more important, your friends or money?
Friends.
Friends.
And Monica, what about your extra tickets?
They're all in there. Even these 5 that I hid in my bra.
Okay, good. You guys were so scared. There was no way I was going to dump this. I think I broke your bowl.
Go!